of them, and I think it goes for like 2.5 pages. And some of those, there was one in the building that's now on the corner of 12th and Market Street that actually held more people than this one. This is, you know, if you look at that building, it's done in a similar style to the courthouse. It's a French Beaux-Arts kind of thing. But remember, the Jamboree was not always at the Capitol Music Hall. Yeah, it was at the Virginia. I think the Jamboree didn't come to the Capitol Music Hall permanently until the late 1960s. Okay? But this is also an important structure because it speaks to the interest of people in Wheeling in music and in entertainments. Remember, even as late as the 1920s, you still had traveling musicals, you had vaudeville, and probably in the late 19th century, it would not be uncommon to have 4 or 5 different theaters open on the same night. Now, by the 1920s, the number of movie theaters is increasing. And Wheeling at one time will have, I think it was 12 theaters by the 1940s. But this again, is a remnant of the musical past of Wheeling in terms of the fact that the symphony will be here, and, you know, the old Sangerfest, the Conservatory of Music, and so forth. Okay. Was built about 1923, 26, somewhere along in there. Now this is Stone and Thomas. Oldest department store in West Virginia, the largest department store in West Virginia. See, the panhandle of West Virginia had at one time the largest business in West Virginia, which was Weirton Steel, and then they had the biggest department store in West Virginia in terms of Stone and Thomas, and now it doesn't. Okay? Why? Well, things change. Things change. 1847, this was put in, and if you remember Stone and Thomas, the building was added on to some of the original windows that were in the Victorian part of it. They were covered over in later years. How many have ever been out to, how difficult would it be to find the Jacob Thomas funeral thing out in Greenwood Cemetery? Monument? Okay. Mr. Thomas had no children, and he dies. Yeah, there it is, right there. Jacob C. Thomas. You have to, if you've never been to Greenwood Cemetery, go just for this one. Okay, it's down. It has its own little ivy. And you got your 2 ladies, this one is holding a torch, extinguishing the torch. This one's holding a wreath. Their eyes are both down. They're beautifully done. Here's Jacob, and then on top of this, there are 2 lanterns that have what look like flames coming out of. Now, I have Jacob Thomas's will. And the first thing that it says is that my executor shall erect a monument on my grave at Greenwood Cemetery that shall cost at least $15,000. Okay? Now, $15,000 is, but this is 1898. What's that equivalent to today? $350,000. And if you read Mr. Thomas's will, he not only has money in Stone and Thomas, he's got money all over the area in terms of property, particularly in Belmont County. But if you go to Greenwood, you will see examples of the wealth of individuals. Thomas is one. This one is kind of interesting. This is Fransheim. If you remember what the name Fransheim's were, he was an architect. Okay. Is that Schmulbach's? Yeah. Okay. This is Henry Schmulbach's. These are just smaller ones. We'll talk about that later. But if you've ever been at Greenwood Cemetery, Schmulbach is it's a Corinthian column, maybe 37, 40 feet high. And directly across the road from it is this huge obelisk. Anton Raymond. Do you think yours is bigger? No, mine's bigger. And of course, okay. So if we can go back to the okay, Stone and Thomas. That Coughlin's thing, just forget about that. That doesn't count. Okay. This is a design by Charles Bates, who was another architect. And I don't know what's in this building now. This is down on the corner of 12th and Main Street. This was put up during about World War I. And it's a beautiful building. There's a lot of white terracotta wood. But one of the things that it demonstrates is that Wheeling is a banking center. Okay? In fact, if you look today in Wheeling, what are the buildings that are still downtown? The banks. And things like West Banco. You know, the West Banco Trust Department's money is measured not in the millions of dollars, in the billions of dollars. And that's a reflection of the wealth that was in this community. Anytime you read anything about Wheeling in terms of, as an explanation of what was going on in the community, one of the things that you would find there constantly is how many banks there were, how big their holdings were, and so on. And remember, the most important thing in driving the economy by 1900 is finance capitalism. When Andrew Carnegie sold his steel company, he did not sell it to another steelmaker. He sold it to a banker, J.P. Morgan. And it's J.P. Morgan that turned Carnegie Steel into United States Steel, which was then the first billion-dollar corporation and the biggest steel mill in the United States. So that's why banks are important. This building, I'll tell you why I like this building. Because most people never appreciate it, because traffic runs one way. Okay. Now, how many of you, the younger folks in here, have ever seen, Mr. Ruther, put your hand down, the far side of this building? How wide? Yeah. How wide is it? You could put your hand around it. Now, what's that show? It shows that Wheeling has to use every bit of space that's there. Okay? You may not know this, but at one time, the Flatiron Building was also City Hall. When they tore down that